Okay, now I'm going to officially talk. I'll say a lot of the things that I've just said, but and I'm just going to kind of resume from where I was. I was talking about liberation journalism and the importance of it. Mainstream media, even alternative media, people that, you know, all of you like to read, the work you like to read, the you know, cool videos that get posted and so forth, they do not know about cracking the code. They don't report about it. And because they don't, we have an obligation ourselves to be the ones to rebut the sort of things that all of you saw yesterday in that courtroom downtown. The way district courts operate, the role that they play in the corrupt system that we have today is they create a narrative. And they operate on the basis that the federal courts continue to have, unfortunately, a cachet of objectivity and legitimacy within the public because of things like, you know, the lifetime tenure that they get, and because they have this ritual associated with them, and because the system for the last 225 years has treated the courts as sort of a, you know, final decision-making, you know, objective arbiter of, you know, facts and law, and endows them and their declarations with this patina of legitimacy and authority and so forth. And so when the state wants to put something out there that it can't otherwise defend, that is illegitimate basically, one of the ways that it's done today is to have a court, you know, somehow generate it, somehow, you know, upchuck it. And yesterday we saw a great example of that. You guys were all there yesterday, is that correct? Okay, how many times did you guys hear Victoria Roberts say that Doreen had filed a return based on the idea that only federal employees are subject to the tax?
Almost every time.
At least three times, and maybe more than that. Every one of those was a lie. That's not what CTC says. That's not what Doreen, you heard in her elocution. She said specifically, this is nonsense, not in the book, and that's not why I do things. And yet the Victoria Roberts repeated it very, very carefully and specifically and deliberately 3 or maybe 4 or 5 times. Why did she do that? Because it's important to the state's narrative that this phony ascription to the book be out there in the record. They have to operate on the basis that this is the truth, because that validates in their minds some things that they're doing, and because that's the message that they want to go out into the world. They want this false ascription to be out there, so that all kinds of other things that go on can have this you know, bogus legitimacy put to them. That's how the state does these things. So this is what happens. This is how the state does this stuff. It tries to set things up so it can put this stuff out there. And believe me, I haven't seen it yet, but I know for a fact there's a DOJ press release that went out probably yesterday afternoon. And if not yesterday afternoon, certainly today. And the object of it was to project these lies that were told in this session. Victoria Roberts will have been quoted significantly, considerably, in whatever that press release is. I've seen lots of these, and I've been in the hearings and seen, you know, what stuff gets picked for these quotations. Those lies that we just spoke about will be the ones that are trumpeted in this press release, and the pretense will be that Victoria Roberts is not, you know, working for the government. She is this, you know, outside, independent, objective arbiter. And so she's not spouting their lines. She's just saying what she independently determined to be true from looking fairly at all of the facts and all the evidence, and you know, and that's the delivery. The government does this kind of thing because narratives matter. When they can project into the public consciousness their spin, their narrative, then that's what everybody is left with if it isn't countered, if it isn't rebutted, if people like you don't answer it. If people like you don't do everything you can to correct the record, because this becomes the record. This becomes the record. And so, how many of you have a blog or a web page or, okay, one person, two people? Nobody else? Why not?
She quoted from me extensively.
Yeah. Why don't the rest of you? Now, I'm asking that somewhat rhetorically, but not really rhetorically. And I'm saying not really rhetorically because the milieu that you are going to operate within in your efforts to protect your interests, to behave lawfully, to try and restore and preserve the Republic for the sake of your kids, and for yourselves. There's anybody here that isn't going to be around tomorrow. Everybody here is going to be around tomorrow and next year and the year after that and 10 years from now. And so, everyone has an interest in making things right. And we can do it, but we only can do it if we start countering the false narratives with a big voice. Now, not any of us here can achieve a voice by ourselves, one-on-one, comparable to the DOJ or, the Washington Post or, any of many other players out there that speak and have a bullier pulpit than we do. But all of us combined, not just all of us in this room, but all of us, everybody that there is, that cares, that has access to this information. If they were all to speak and just pretty much, relentlessly speak, it would make a difference. And one of the reasons why that's possible is today, back in an earlier era, in Nazi Germany, in Stalinist Russia, in still in North Korea, in any of the places where there was a substantial problem of state corruption and an effort to control speech and control the dialogue and so forth, there were very little limited opportunities for the people to do anything about that. It really was tough. It became the fact in the Soviet Union after 70 years of pretty lockdown suppression that the system cracked, and it did in large part because mimeography became possible in the Soviet Union. Just that simple, that modest little technology that some of you are old enough to remember, and some are not old enough to remember here. There are some people here who've never seen a mimeograph machine or smelled that weird kind of
one in the house.
Smell. Okay, well that's what did it in the Soviet Union. That technology became available. And suddenly these people were able to surreptitiously produce documents that they could spread amongst themselves. And word got around, and word got around, and word got around, and things began to fall apart. The dissatisfaction, the we're not consenting, the we're going to pretend, to be playing along here, but not really, thing got to the point where that system couldn't sustain itself any longer and it collapsed. Today, frankly, having a website is, it's cheap and easy. I mean, you can actually do that. Go to GoDaddy, which I haven't done myself, but I know that they'll do it. They'll do it for free. You can set up a website. You got to have a little bit of their advertising, I think, on your web pages in order to do it. Or you can just buy your own domain. $20 a month. Rent you a domain, or rent you the space. You own the domain. You get the space on Yahoo or whoever. It's not expensive. It's not hard. It's really fairly easy. And by doing that, you become potentially comparable to anybody. You become comparable to Glenn Beck or the Washington Post. They'll have a slicker affair, perhaps because they can spend the money on the more elaborate graphics and and all that, but theoretically, you're as accessible to anybody, and if you come up with, something that people want to see, they can get there. They can read it, they can see it. And you can be a much bigger voice than you might imagine. And in any event, you can be a whole lot bigger voice than the guy with the mimeograph machine in St. Petersburg that was, trying to get free. And you need to do that. We have to do that. We have to regain some control of the narrative. Now, you can't stop corrupt people from being corrupt. But what you can do is you can ensure that you're not enabling their corruption. You're not doing something that allows them to behave corruptly, that endorses their corrupt behavior. And that's really what the CTC message is all about. You figure out what's true and just say it. That's all you have to do, is say what's true. You don't have to do anything further than that. I mean, really, there's not much further than that you can do. I mean, maybe you end up, having to argue an issue out in a courtroom or something like that at some point or another. But to begin with, all you need to do is say what's true. You just have to give your own testimony, your own honest testimony, and that's it. And then you can't stop the other side from behaving badly. You can't stop them from being corrupt, but you will have stopped what otherwise would have been your participation in the corrupt process, in things being done wrong. Happily, almost always, that's all you have to do. That's enough in order to get the satisfaction that you're looking for, too. It's all you have to do morally, and it's all you have to do legally, but it also is usually all you have to do practically to have what you want out of the situation. But, those are your choices. No, we can't, by our individual actions, make angels out of people who aren't. We can lead by example. We can, and we do, by the way, lead by example, even with those people. When an honest person that knows the law acts in accordance with the law, it shows everybody the path to be taken. It shows even, the people at the IRS the path to be taken. It shows even, corrupt. This is why Melissa Siskine was nervous yesterday. She had a crowded courtroom behind her of people who do not play her shabby little game and just, agreeably participate in the corruption. She had a bunch of honest Americans behind her, and she knew it. That was the first time I'd ever heard that quaver in her voice. And I sat through 2 trials with Melissa Siskine and a bunch of hearings and other stuff. That was the first time that we ever had a packed courtroom, and that's the first time I ever heard the least bit of nerves in her voice, and she was shaking.
She saw me staring at her too.
Well, I'm sure she did. And the point is, she knew she had a room full of real people that she was dealing with, not her puppet judge and her puppet or co-conspirator group around her, and then just one lone defendant that was going to be the object of everybody's pile on. Your example matters. Your example individually, your example as a voice into the community. These things matter. So that's the first message that I want to give here.